The recently released Assessment Report 6, or AR6, from the United Nations IPCC continues to take a doom and gloom stance on human involvement in climate change. The mainstream media is predictably running with this, saying it proves that humans have a catastrophic effect on the climate and we need to make drastic change now or we're going to die in a climate-related apocalypse. But this is a new thing. They have been claiming that we're going to die a climate-related death for years. Have they? Here we go. This article comes from 1967. There'll be a dire famine by 1975. It is already too late for the world to avoid a long period of famine, a Stanford University biologist said Thursday. Paul Ehrlich said the time of famines is upon us and it will be at its worst and most disastrous by 1975. Wrong. 1969, from the New York Times. Foe of pollution sees lack of time. The trouble with almost all environmental problems, says Paul Ehrlich, the population biologist, is that by the time we have enough evidence to convince people, you're dead. We must realize that unless we are extremely lucky, everybody will disappear in a cloud of blue steam in 20 years. The Boston Globe, 1970. Scientist predicts a new ice age by the 21st century. This next article comes from Redlands Daily Facts, and it references our favorite scientist, Dr. Ehrlich. Ehrlich predicts that the oceans will be as dead as Lake Erie in less than a decade. America will be subject to water rationing by 1974 and food rationing by 1980. Why do they keep going to this guy? From the Washington Post in 1971, new ice age coming. In 1974, we have an article from The Guardian saying there's a new ice age coming fast. Also in 1974, we have Time saying another ice age. Next, we have this New York Times book review from 1976 titled The Cooling. So writes Stephen Schneider, a young climatologist at the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado, reflecting the consensus of the climatological community. In 1974, Schneider and Bryson tried to explain to a White House policymaking group why conditions are likely to worsen. One of the most depressing anecdotes in the book is Schneider's description of the deaf ears their warnings received. And to be clear, this is relating to global cooling. In 1980, we have Acid Rain Kills Life in Lakes. From the New York Times in 1978, we have No End in Sight to 30-Year Cooling Trend. In 1988, we have the James Hansen forecasts increased regional drought in the 1990s. But then if we look at this chart here for the upper Midwest climate region, we can see that overall precipitation has increased and drought has decreased along with it. Here's a funny one from the Lansing State Journal. Prepare for long, hot summers. But if we look at this section highlighted on the right, it says, Washington, D.C., for instance, would go from its current 35 days a year over 90 degrees to 85 days a year. The level of the ocean will rise anywhere from 1 to 6 feet. In 1988, we have the article Threat to Islands, which claims the Maldives will be completely underwater within 30 years. Here's a good one from the Associated Press. In 1989, rising seas could obliterate nations, says UN officials. In 1989, Salon says, New York City West Side Highway underwater by 2019. In 2000, The Independent put out an article titled, Snowfalls are now just a thing of the past, and they claim that children just aren't going to know what snow is. In 2004, The Guardian puts out, Now the Pentagon tells Bush, climate change will destroy us. And it says that Britain will be Siberian in less than 20 years. Britain is plunged into a Siberian climate by 2020. Nuclear conflict, mega droughts, famine, and widespread rioting will erupt across the world. Well, it's 2021. You know, in their defense here, 2020 did have some rioting, but it wasn't from the climate. From the Argus Press in 2008, we have Arctic will be ice-free by 2018. NASA scientists, we're toast. Here's an inconvenient truth for Al Gore. He predicted that the North Polar ice cap would be completely gone in 2008. Well, this article came from 2018, and it's still there. In 2009, Prince Charles claimed we have just 96 months to save the world. Here's another funny one. So in 2009, the UK Prime Minister was Gordon Brown, and he claimed that we have fewer than 50 days to save our planet from catastrophe. Then, in 2009, Al Gore again claimed that the polar ice cap may disappear by the summer of 2014. In 2013, The Guardian put out another article titled, Ice-Free Arctic in 2 Years Heralds Methane Catastrophe. Since they got that prediction wrong, The Guardian decided to put out an article in 2013 saying that the Arctic would be ice-free by 2016. Alright, here's a funny one. Check out the author here, Gerald Beyer. Beyer puts out an article titled, French Foreign Minister, 500 Days to Avoid Climate Chaos. And then months later, Beyer puts out another article, Planet Still Standing 500 Days After French Foreign Minister Warned of Climate Chaos. So do you really trust the doom and gloom stories coming out today? I'll leave you with that.